Welcome into the USFL Betting Show, the preview for Week 8. We got 4 games to break down with 3 of the best in the business from WagerTalk.com, Adam Trigger, Rob Veno, and Tony Mejia. I am Drew Martin. Let's get after it, guys. We got first game up Friday night here, 8 p.m. under the lights. Trig, we can start off with you first, man. We get the Pitt Maulers versus the New Jersey Generals, 6-1 for the Generals, 1-6 for the Maulers. But the ultimate equalizer here, -9 is what we're seeing the Generals laying, 41 being the total. All the games in Birmingham. You liking anything in Beham Friday night, Trig?
Well, Drew, the Maulers have been decent against the number. You're right. The spread is the ultimate equalizer, and that's kind of been the case in these Maulers games. You know, you go back to last week, I thought 12.5 was probably too many, and it turned out to be too many. They only lost by 10, and they probably were, better than that final score suggested. They were in that game for a while. So, I guess it's tough to have a ton of confidence in this Maulers team at this point, but they have hung around against the number. They covered the first time against the Generals. And I guess the way I would look at this is the Generals clinched the playoffs. And all the playoff games are in Canton, Ohio. I don't know that there's much to gain for the Generals at this point. And Turpin, who's been kind of their stud, got injured last week. I don't know what his scenario is, but I'd be shocked if they were willing to push him now that they're already in the playoffs. So just from that perspective, I don't know how much confidence I have in Reggie Rivers at quarterback, if that's who, in fact, it's going to be. I know they took Lee out of that game. But once again, it feels like the number is awfully high. And if this keeps getting bet up, I think the only way I could go would be to take the points once again with the Maulers. So that's the way I would look at this one here.
Yeah, Robbie, I mean, to Trig's point, the Maulers were in the game for a lot of that game last week against the best team, at least record-wise, in the USFL and the Stallions. I kind of lean with Trig here, plus the 9. Generals are 6-1, though. What are your thoughts here in Birmingham, 8 p.m.?
Yeah, I think a lot of what Adam said is true. It was interesting, the benching of Vad Lee last week. Guys, he claims he couldn't get the play call. Pittsburgh was forced to call a timeout late in the game that head coach Kirby Wilson did not want whatsoever. And when Lee came to the sidelines, there's a little dispute between the two. The head coach was upset with his, time management, the quarterback's time management. The quarterback was upset with the fact that he didn't think he got the play in on time. And the USFL being what it is, all mic'd up, you could hear Kirby Wilson look at his assistant coach and say, I'm taking his ass out of the game. And that's exactly what he did with the team only down by 1 score. And with, I think it was like 4 minutes left in the contest. They bring in Roland Rivers, who looked lousy, no doubt about it. He went 3 of 9, didn't really know what he was doing, threw him out to the Wolves. Birmingham goes on and kicks 1 more field goal, sends the game over the total, which was good for me. Where the first meeting was concerned, I think at that point in time, my opinion of that was the Generals shorten games because they run the football so much that possessions are limited for each side. I could see that being the case here. Pittsburgh, for what it's worth, guys, they play really, really good run defense. And run defense is something that you have to play against Jersey. It allowed them to cover against New Jersey the first time around. But I don't know that they, I feel like they're a turnover waiting to happen with Rivers at quarterback. Kirby Wilson, the head coach of Pittsburgh, has been absolutely miserable as far as on-field strategy is concerned. And anybody who watched the end of the first half last week knows that. His time management, they absolutely gave away an opportunity to score at the end of the first half by just running the football until the clock ran out. And they were already at midfield. So I don't know what to make of them offensively. I certainly don't trust them. What Adam said about the playoffs, absolutely correct. There's no advantage to keep winning, Drew. It's not like if you become the number 1 seed, you get home field advantage here. So there's nothing there. What is, I guess, at stake is these guys are all playing for a potential shot at NFL camps down the road here. So I would think guys keep playing hard, but the coach has a way of, pulling the strings here and making sure nobody gets hurt for the playoffs. So kind of in a flux where that's concerned. I think, though, if I had to, I think the more trustworthy team is the favorite here. I'd almost prefer to lay it in something that looks like a 23-10 game in favor of the Generals. Perhaps under is a real good look in this contest.
And Tony, what are you liking in the first game here, USFL Week 8?
I mean, if I'm going to watch this game and actually try to make some money off it, I am not backing the Pittsburgh Maulers. 9 points is substantial, but I mean, it was broken down how this coaching staff has had the least success in the league. I picked this team to be the worst in the league, and that's one of the few things I've gotten right futures-wise, because my Tampa Bay Bandits are not going to even make the playoffs, it doesn't look like, and that's why I liked to win it all. But, one thing that has stood out is that, we've had this Pittsburgh Maulers team really fade in the second half. They were in the mix, as we said, at halftime in the last game. And at this point, I think you need to wait to see if DeAndre Johnson makes his return. We don't know that yet. He's questionable with an ankle injury. If he plays, I would be all over New Jersey. If he doesn't play, I would sit this one out.
And Robbie, before we get to the second game here, you bring up the playoffs, man. For the people that might just be joining us and didn't catch our first show, man, do you mind breaking down the playoffs in I guess, the 8-team league here? You talked about no advantage to keep winning. How does it set up in the playoffs for the USFL?
You're going to get the top two from each division, Drew, which is why the schedule maker was really smart in the way that they laid this league out. They had 4-team divisions, first of all, for those who don't know, 4 in each side, North and South. And the first 3 weeks of the season were spent as divisional games. And then they went away from that and played the next 4 out of division in order to set up some type of playoff, drama in the last 3 weeks. All teams inside the division will play each other over the course of these next 3 weeks. And divisional record is the tiebreaker in case of a tie in the overall standings inside of a division. So everybody's really still alive to make the playoffs. 2 have clinched already, New Jersey and Birmingham. They'll both be in the playoffs. But again, when you try to think about reasoning to win games or try real hard to win games if they're close in the end, it's not a lot of incentive there. These games are all going to be pushed to Canton, Ohio, and there's no home field at stake. You're just going to get the top 2 from each side, and it'll be a 14 playoff format.
Good stuff from Robbie Veno. Guys, let's start off the second game here, number 2 of 4 before best bets at the end. Robbie, starting off with you first here, 3 p.m. on Saturday. We got the New Orleans Breakers and the Birmingham Stallions. We've talked about it before, guys. The one team with a home field advantage, at least somewhat, is the Stallions. Minus 3-point home favorites here, 44 being the total. Singled out game Saturday afternoon. Robbie, you like anything here? Breakers and Stallions.
Yeah, so the same thing exists, Drew, for Birmingham, right? They don't have a real reason to continue winning games. They're already in the playoffs. They're one of the 4. We've talked a lot on this show about playing the Houston Gamblers in the first half because they're undefeated against the spread and undefeated straight up in the first half. The same can be said for Birmingham's second half. If you just want to sit around and wait for the halftime to come and then go ahead and bet second half, Birmingham is 7-0 straight up second half, 6-0 against the spread second half. So everything Houston does in the first half, Birmingham has duplicated second half. And maybe that's a credit to Skip Holtz and his coaching staff for making the proper adjustments. Last week was another week where they went into halftime as pretty large favorites, trailing 10-6 to the Pittsburgh Maulers, come out second half, destroy them, win the second half 20-6. And Jamar Smith had a bad game at quarterback for the Birmingham Stallions. He didn't play well at all. There were a lot of field goals kicked in that game, Drew. A lot of scoring opportunities went by the wayside where touchdowns are concerned and were turned into field goals. I think, I go back and forth with this. I've said more than once here now that there's no real reason for either Birmingham or New Jersey to go ahead and try and win games. But I don't know that you shut it down with 3 weeks left in the season. That's an awful lot, a long time to shut it down for. Shut it down for game 8, game 9, game 10, and then think you're going to pick right back up when you get to the playoffs a month from now. Seems like a lot. So perhaps Birmingham and New Orleans, which are the two best teams in the South Division. New Orleans has a chance to clinch their playoff spot right here with a victory. First time around, they lost this game to Birmingham. They lost the turnover battle, which was really the key because total yardage-wise, New Orleans, I think, outgained Birmingham by like 3 yards. It was 316 to 313. So they definitely hung with them, but turnovers cost them. I could almost see them flipping the script here and Birmingham getting their first loss of the season. However, like I mentioned, I do expect a better game throwing the football out of Smith and the Stallions. Bo Scarborough at running back has been a godsend for them because now they combine him with C.J. Marable, and they got the best 1-2 running punch next to New Jersey in the league. I think I still lean New Orleans because the incentive to win is there, Drew. They will be playing against the home crowd. And again, one more week where if you watched the game last week, boy, you heard an awful lot of noise for the Birmingham side. And every other game, you heard zero noise in the entire stadium. So they do have the home field advantage. But I think I lean New Orleans.
Yeah, the one team where we can say, home field advantage here, Tony. Laying the 344 the total. What are you liking between New Orleans and Beeham on Saturday?
Well, yeah, just to piggyback off what Rob was saying, hard to sense motivation from an undefeated Birmingham squad, except for the fact that you could prevent New Orleans from clinching a spot, which would make them work harder the next week as they try to get through and eliminate Tampa Bay. And then you do have Jamar Smith trying to bounce back from a 9 for 24 passing effort. So I think my lean is the over in this because I'm expecting New Orleans to be driven to get this win, to get qualification out of the way. I don't think that you're going to see a lot out of Birmingham defensively showing their hand, considering they'll be playing in the playoffs at the end of the month against likely this Breakers squad. We'll see if Kyle Sloter is a little healthier this week. Larry Fedora used Zach Smith as a change of pace guy, and I think that has a lot to do with Sloter's nagging injuries, which we've been talking about for the last few weeks. But yeah, this should be a fun matchup. It's just a matter of how Birmingham attacks this game. Do they, the incentive of remaining undefeated, I guess, and playing in front of a home crowd that has done them really nicely. If you want to lay the points there, I could understand that, but I would lean New Orleans plus the points, and I really like the over here. Likely is my best bet.
Good stuff, Tony. And Trig, coming to you in conclusion for Saturday's game. What are you seeing here, buddy?
Conclusion, Drew. I'm announcing this right now. I'm all in on New Orleans from this point forward. It's a 4% play for me here, +3. I already bet it, so there you go. It's going to be my best bet. So I'll save my little spiel for best bets because these two did a great job of breaking it down. As long as Kyle Sloter is on the field, and as far as I know, the groin is getting better. As long as he's on the field, I'll be riding New Orleans until they're out of this thing. Rob Veno said at the beginning of the year he thought they were the best team. I agree with him. I don't know why I ever bet against them at any point. Still think that they could end up being the best team when it's all said and done. So New Orleans +3. That's how I'm going to go with this one. And stay tuned for the best segment. I'll go into detail then.
Yeah, we'll wait for Trig's spiel on this one in the best bets. Tony, coming to you next to kick off Sundays. 12 noon Eastern, guys. Do note this, 9 a.m. Pacific. I've been burned on this before. Get my bet in for these early Sunday games, Tony. But we get Michigan Panthers, Philadelphia Stars, -5 in the hook. That's the Stars. 47 being the total. Highest totaled game on the board for Week 8. What do you like in here, Panthers and Stars, Tony?
Well, Rob's favorite quarterback in this league, Josh Love, is now the quarterback for the Panthers. And I mean, they were in that game against New Orleans, who we all are in agreement we all really like and probably like going forward. But the first overtime game, the Breakers held on to beat these Panthers. I want to see how the Panthers bounce back, considering they're not going anywhere. They're playing for pride from here on out. And the Philadelphia Stars with a big bounce back in the second half to win their game last week. looking like the team that's going to represent the other team in the North Division. So, big game for the Stars, considering they've already basically put this away, but they can for sure second playoff spot to play against the Generals, and I think they'll do so. But this game could be closer. It depends on whether Love can continue his momentum. We saw Cookus overcome 2 early interceptions and bring back the Stars last week. So looks like he's settled in. One thing to note, it's going to be 95-degree weather, so hot, humid, really hot weather in Birmingham all weekend. So that might be one thing to note. If maybe these defenses tire out, this could be another over.
That's a good point there, Tony. I spent 5 years of my life living in the state of Alabama, and when it gets to the month of June and it's hot, it is really hot. It's not like you get that kind of coastal air blowing in. So that's something to watch here, guys, as this season moves on. Trig, what are you liking here? 12 noon Eastern time on Sunday.
Well, if the Panthers win here, they're not out of it. So they would have to win this game, and there's still a way that they can play their way into the playoffs if they win this game outright. So I'm just going to throw that out there. It's not a situation like we'll see with the Gamblers where there's nothing they can do. Their season is, going to just be the regular season, then it's over. The Panthers, I keep watching this team, and I'm impressed with a lot of the stuff they do, and then they just find ways to lose. Like that's been the kind of the struggle with this Michigan team. But with that being said, I don't think Philadelphia should be laying this number here. Their comeback last week was a gambler's collapse more than anything. I was on the Gamblers for my only client playing my best bet last week, and they completely just threw the game away in the fourth quarter in Gamblers fashion. And I think the Stars with this line right here, 5.5, I think they're getting a little bit too much credit for a double-digit win last week. That really was a double-digit win in the box score only. Like they didn't just blow out Houston. In fact, they were fortunate to even be in position to win, later in that game, in my opinion. So Philadelphia, the defense still concerns me. They still give up points. And for that reason, I don't think they're a team that I'm going to be trying to back to win games by margin. I think for Philly, I'd be more or less looking for them in an underdog role in a game where they could, put some points up and surprise someone, as opposed to, having to cover a number. These two played a few weeks back. It was a tight game the whole way that came down to a last-second field goal. I believe it was a 1-point final. I wouldn't be overly surprised to see something similar, a game that kind of hangs in the balance and goes right down to the wire. So I'd be looking to Michigan plus the points here. They were right in a game with the New Orleans team that I think is very strong last week, and I wouldn't be shocked to see them in this one as well. So Michigan plus the points is the way I'd look at this one, Drew.
Robbie, what are you thinking on Sunday? Looking towards the dog as well, plus the points?
I am, and I'm thinking I want to pull a trig and just save my spiel for the end of the show because this will be my best bet.
Okay.
I do like Michigan plus the points here for multiple reasons, so I'll discuss them when we get the best bets.
Hey, we'll save Robbie's spiel for best bet. Hey, actually, guys, we could do a little special here. We're under 100 days until college football, the NFL, I believe. And Robbie, before we got on air, you mentioned something about a huge line move, week 0 college football. SEC, Mountain West, on the island, I believe. Is that Vanderbilt? What did you see there, man? Did you have anything, or were you just kind of going on? What did you see on the island?
I just happened to be taking a look at the WagerTalk odds screen, Drew, and saw Vanderbilt as a 2.5-point favorite opening number, increased all the way to -7 at multiple outlets right now. There's some 6.5s left, but no shortage of money backing the Vanderbilt Commodores early in Hawaii on the 27th of August. So we see already guys have hit the lines, hit the counters, and back the Vanderbilt team. So there's about 6 or 7 games that day, and we'll see how they go, but we'll investigate those further as time goes on.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. That's the last game on the card, Saturday, August 27th, guys. That's going to have an enormous amount of tickets written on it, an enormous amount of money wagered on that one, right? I mean, just real quick here, right? Do you think that's just, hey, SEC, Vanderbilt's kind of been recruiting in that nature, and Hawaii, they had some coaching issues last year, or is there something more under the hood? I mean, I haven't dug into it.
Yeah, I think that's a certain set of guys that have done an immense amount of college football work that were waiting for that number to come and think they found value against their numbers on that side. Because generally speaking, Drew, but at this time of year, this early portion of the year where college football is concerned, it's only those types of guys that are betting these games. So I think it's guys that have worked, the winter months on college football, had numbers, saw that number hung, went ahead and pounded it, and odds makers have had to adjust.
Robbie, this week 0 slate, man. Charlotte, FAU. We got New Mexico State, Nevada. Wow. I can't wait to be breaking this down with you guys.
Right.
All of you guys. Every game on the board. It's going to be fun. But we got one game left here. Best bets at the end. Houston Gamblers, Tampa Bay Bandits. Trig, coming back to you first. 44.5 being the total, -5. That's the Bandits at home. You mentioned the Gamblers playing really for the regular season only. Interested in your thoughts on the game. Also, how much do you think that factors in? I mean, these guys aren't all millionaires where it's like, I'm heading to Cancun. Who really cares? NBA style. We're not making the playoffs. I mean, these guys are still have something to play for in terms of, their resume to try to make an NFL roster. At least that's my thinking, man. So I don't know if I would totally write them off here. Interested in your thoughts on that. Interested in your thoughts on what you're betting Sunday, man.
I mean, the way this league is going, this will be the game the Gamblers win, right? Like, now they're out of it, and this will be the game where they come out and they actually finish a football game and win. Because, like I said, I was on them last week as my best bet. They once again lead at halftime. It's like, I think it's 7-0 now, where they've been ahead at half, and they just caved in the fourth quarter. I think Philly scored like 20 points or something like of that nature, unanswered in the fourth quarter, or unanswered to win that game. There was a point in time where the Gamblers led by double digits last week and not only could they not cover the 3, they ended up getting blown out in the final few minutes of the game. With that all being said, I'd still take them here if I had to bet this game. I haven't bet it yet, but the Bandits have done nothing, in my opinion, to justify being a 5-point favorite here. And that's really all I have with this one, because there's so many little angles here. Like the Gamblers, now they're out of it, so they're like the opposite of Birmingham and New Jersey, where they can't go to the playoffs, right? So do they still care? I mean, there's still guys on that roster playing for to get a look. I would lean toward they're still going to show up. And if they do show up, then +5 is probably way too many. The first game between these two teams came down to a last-second field goal that the Gamblers basically had won, and really had to try very, very hard to let Tampa back into that game and then have a chance to come down and kick a game-winning 47-yard field goal. So, man, I don't know if I want to trust them in sort of this pointless game sort of spot for the Gamblers, but +5 is just way too many for Tampa Bay to lay. I'd be taking the points, or it's either the points or a pass for me, Drew.
Okay, Trig. And Robbie, we got the two teams with the best names, in my opinion, in the USFL, Gamblers and Bandits. What are you liking here, Robbie?
Yeah, if you're the Bandits, you're hoping for a New Orleans loss, and you win the game, and then all of a sudden your divisional records are both evened up at 2-2. And as far as overall, you're only one game behind New Orleans with a shot at them within the last 2 weeks. So for Tampa Bay, certainly playoff life is still a possibility. The last 2 weeks, they've been very good in total yardage margin. They outgained Philadelphia 411 to 263, find a way to lose. They outgained New Jersey 302 to 261, find a way to lose. And really, their ways to lose are on the offensive side. I mean, you would think with Todd Haley as your head coach, your offense would be good. Their offense just is so sporadic at times with Jordan Ta'amu, and it winds up costing them. I think they lead the league in negative turnover margin. They're last in the league in turnover margin. So that's been a big problem. They're up there in penalties committed as well. So they're doing the type of stuff that would cause you to lose games. It's not really the fundamentals as far as offense, defense are concerned. It's more or less can't hang on to the football and can't avoid penalties. It cost them again last week. In that first game that Adam talked about, that game, by the way, guys, had the most total yardage of any game in the USFL so far this year. 765 total yards in that Houston-Tampa game, 400 of them for Houston, 365 for Tampa. 27-26 Tampa wins, already been discussed. You know, it's almost impossible to buck the Houston first half trend at this point in time, but betting against them full game is a real possibility. And at some point in time, just looking at the way Tampa has played defense the last 2 weeks, I think there's going to be a week where they put some stuff together, and it might very well be this one. I'm willing to take a chance with Tampa full game here. Houston, obviously, Clayton Thorson is on the injured reserve list now, so Kenji Bahar came back as their quarterback. Remember, he had originally won the starting job. Then he got hurt. Thorson took over. Thorson gets hurt. Bahar goes 10 for 13 last week for Houston. More short little dink passes than anything downfield. And they relied on the ground game the first time around in this contest. Houston had 160 on the ground that set up their passing. Thompson and Dawkins have been really, really good running the football. And, you know, it's one of those things, Drew, where you're looking for reasons to bet a side, and a lot of this is gut feel more than I can prove this to you through numbers and through play. But I think Tampa Bay full game might be a good spot this week just because of the incentive to win, the possibility, and they'll know. Let's add this to it. They'll know the New Orleans result by the time they take the field. So if New Orleans has lost to Birmingham, then that increases the incentive of Tampa Bay to win this game. They get that much closer to a playoff spot, as I mentioned, with a shot at New Orleans down the road. So I think I'd probably look to Tampa, especially if that's the situation. New Orleans loss, I'd really look to Tampa.
Like it. And Tony, coming to you last, man, on the Houston-Tampa Bay game. Gamblers, bandits, you like it, anything here? And feel free to transition and do final thoughts and best bets, Tony.
All right. Well, I mean, Tampa shot itself in the foot again. Their own worst enemy, the Bandits, and three trips into the 20 with no points, including the final possession, which is really disappointing because again, Tamu was supposed to be, a playmaker. He did have a couple of comebacks in on the season, but overall disappointment. And at this point, you're hoping if you're a Tampa backer that they can even their record at 4-4 and then get a New Orleans loss and they can stay alive. But I mean, the Gamblers, I can't touch this team. I mean, they've lost 5 games by 7 points or less, so it's certainly within their rights to cover the number. But I've seen enough out of Kevin Sumlin's team. They blew a 24-13 lead once again. It didn't even cover the spread for poor Trigg. And it's a case now that they have their backup quarterback back, and Kenji Bahar, who you now know what to expect. He kind of had the element of surprise last week in getting a couple of second half lead against Philadelphia. So, from that standpoint, I think Tampa Bay will be prepared for him and what the Gamblers want to do. And I'm not trusting Houston at this point. They're like trusting the Philadelphia Phillies bullpen with a late lead. Just not going to happen. So Tampa Bay or bust for me. And I think if New Orleans does lose this game, I'll pull the trigger on it for a client play. If not, I'll probably pass. But certainly two of the more disappointing teams in the league probably deserve better records than they've got right now. But plays here or there, have really besieged their seasons. For my best bet, I'm going to stick with that New Orleans-Birmingham game. I don't think Birmingham shows their hand defensively, and that allows New Orleans to create some big plays. But I think the Stallions want to win for that fan base. I think they want to remain undefeated. So I think they want to see Jamar Smith bounce back from a poor performance. They do have running backs, who can really, get up and up the field and break big plays. I like the over as my best bet this week. It'll be a client play. I'm not sure what percentage yet, but one of my favorite plays for the week. And it's one of the Fox games So they want to put on a good show with a playoff preview. I think both teams will be engaged, but just don't know how engaged Birmingham will be defensively.
Sure. That's the singled out game on Saturday, guys. For my best bet, I'm going to Friday night action. New Jersey Generals -9, the biggest favorites on the board, and they're the biggest favorites for a reason, in my opinion. It's because the Pitt Maulers, just 1-6 on the season, 4 quarterbacks in the last 4 weeks. I think it's working against them. You know, the football, especially on the offensive side at the quarterback position, a lot of knowing what you're doing, knowing what everybody on the field is doing, and it's just very difficult to play good offensive football when you're changing that much. 4 quarterbacks, 4 weeks. That's crazy. And the Generals just last week proving they can win with Perez at the quarterback position. And we'll see what happens there. They've won with multiple quarterbacks now. So 6-1, the Generals. I'm laying the 9 there with them as the favorite. We got Rob Veno at Rob Veno Sports on Twitter. Check him out, WagerTalk.com. Robbie, what do you got for final thoughts and your best bet?
Yeah, I'm going to take Michigan plus the 5.5 points here, Drew. Some of the stuff was discussed that first time around. Boy, you know, I remember it like it was yesterday. I'm a little 6-0 run here in USFL, and the one I remember is that loss with Michigan where my favorite head coach, Jeff Fisher, went to his immense knowledge and, you know, with 30 seconds left in the game and a timeout, 1st and goal from the 3, and a punter as his place kicker, which they know has been horrendous for them. This guy decides on 1st and goal to just let the clock run all the way down to 3 seconds, never try a play in a game where you've already run for 250 yards, 7.9 per carry. And we're just going to let it run out, and we'll try and kick the field goal with our punter. That thing doinks off the upright, and instead of covering a -1 with Michigan, you lose. Those types of things stick with you. However, I don't hold a grudge against Jeff Fisher's inability as a head coach. I think that they probably get the cover here. To me, this number seemed way too large. Power ratings, remember, there's no home field here. These are neutral fields, right? My power ratings made Philadelphia 1 point better than Michigan in this case. They have a new quarterback, like Tony said. They have Josh Love in there last week, play really, really well. But I think I look at this way more from the first time around standpoint. Again, Philadelphia's been absolutely terrible defensively overall, especially against the run. And Reggie Corbin and this Michigan offensive line have run the football, including that 250 that they had against Philadelphia. I think they can repeat that. Last week, they were, by all rights, they probably should have won that game. And they wind up losing against a better team in New Orleans. So I think Michigan's playing really good football right now. There's certain things holding them back from breaking the win column. The Stars can't clinch a playoff spot with a win. However, Michigan stays alive in the playoff hunt with a win. So I think there's as much motivation on the underdog side as there is on the favorite side. The Stars, let me just say this real quick here. The Michigan defense sits number 2 in the league right now. So not only do they have a great advantage rushing the football against Philadelphia's lousy run defense, but they have a great advantage defensively. They've allowed only 293, 332, and 313 over the last 3 weeks to better teams than this, New Orleans and Birmingham among them. I think that the Panthers right now, who have found themselves up at number 3 overall in offensive total yardage per game because they've added the passing element to their game. Check out their last 3 games and just look at what they've done throwing the football to complement that run game. To me, the wrong team is favored here. The better team is Michigan. At this point in time, Philadelphia's really done nothing but live off of turnovers. Adam broke down how Houston gave them a game last week more than Philadelphia winning. I don't see any reason here, Drew, not to take 5.5. So I'm on Michigan plus 5.5 to get a little revenge for what happened the first time around. And by the way, real quick, as I moaned and groaned about the punter missing a field goal that first time around, it wasn't till after he did that Michigan changed kickers. And the Panthers' new kicker, Cole Murphy, ex-Syracuse kicker, is now 7 of 8 on field goals, 5 of 5 on extra points, and he hit a 60-yarder last week. So the kicking issues have been solved here. I don't think that's a problem this time around. So give me Michigan plus the 5.5.
Like it. Robbie Veno, WagerTalk.com, the soft markets of the USFL. Look to check them out here. We got Trigger looking to beat him as well. Finish us off, Trig. We got New Orleans +3, New Jersey -9, and Michigan +5.5. What's the last best bet of the show?
Well, I might be joining Rob on that Michigan play. I like that quite a bit. But my best bet for the show, and something I've already given out to my clients, is the New Orleans Breakers +3. Drew, coming into the season, I've liked Kyle Sloter since he was winning games for the Minnesota Vikings in the preseason. You go back and look at his numbers with Mike Zimmer closing out those preseason games. They're incredible. And I think he's been playing hurt. He's dealt with a groin injury that's really slowed him down, and it slowed this New Orleans team down a little bit. But I'm banking on the groin getting better. Last week he played the majority of the game. Zach Smith, former Tulsa quarterback, came in for some of the game. Actually, it wasn't bad. I think he went 5 for 8 with a touchdown in relief of Sloter. But as long as Kyle Sloter's on the field, I'm riding this New Orleans team because I really do think that they've got a lot of the intangibles in place to be, to potentially win this league. And the Stallions, they're going to take a loss at some point. That's my gut feeling is they're not going to run the table. They've been very close to losing, and they seem to pull it out. But New Orleans really needs this one, Drew, and the Stallions don't. And I think that at the end of this game, if it is a scenario, remember, the first meeting between these two teams, it took a late score in the fourth quarter by the Stallions to take a lead and eventually win that game. And I just think if this one's hanging in the balance in the fourth quarter, it just means so much more to New Orleans. Getting the 3 points here, I don't think I'm going to need them. I really do like New Orleans to win this game. But if they don't, I'm getting a field goal to work with, and I love that too. I believe this was 3.5 at one point for a few minutes. Quickly bet down to +3 where it sits right now, and that's where I jumped in. So New Orleans Breakers, I really think that this is like the value side. If you want to take like a position on a team to win this whole thing right now that isn't New Jersey or Birmingham, it would have to be New Orleans for me. And I like them here. I think they get the W. New Orleans +3, best bet, 4% play.
You guys heard it there. The spiel from Trig. We got the New Jersey Generals -9. Trigger on the Breakers +3. Panthers +5.5. And Tony Mejia. Earlier I said the +3. I was wrong. It's the New Orleans Breakers. Birmingham Stallions over 44. So for Tony, Rob, Adam, I am Drew. Check us out, WagerTalk.com. Guys, thanks for tuning in. We'll be back next Thursday, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Come and join us for Week 9 USFL Betting Show. Best of luck until then. Thanks for tuning in.